200 cancer patients, same hospital, same treatment, same hope, but only about 20% survived. The other 80%, their bodies simply didn't respond. Think about that for a moment. A treatment powerful enough to save lives, yet it only works for 1 out of 5 people. So, the real question isn't whether the treatment works, it's this: why does it work for some and completely fail for others? Scientists searched everywhere for answers. They looked at age, genetics, medications, even lifestyle factors. Nothing explained the difference until they discovered something unexpected, something hidden deep inside the body, something most people never think about. Not in the brain, not in the blood, but in the gut. And what they found there changed everything. At first, the answer seemed obvious. It had to be genetics. After all, cancer is deeply tied to DNA, mutations, and inherited risk. So researchers began there, mapping genomes, comparing patients, looking for that one defining difference. But nothing stood out. Two patients could share nearly identical genetic profiles, yet have completely opposite outcomes. One would respond dramatically, tumors shrinking, immune system activated, recovery within reach. The other would show almost no change at all. So they moved on. Maybe it was age, older patients versus younger ones. No pattern. Maybe gender, male versus female. Still nothing. What about medications? Pre-existing conditions? Lifestyle habits? Again, no consistent explanation. It was as if the most advanced tools in modern medicine were missing something obvious, something hiding in plain sight. And that's when researchers made a shift. Instead of looking at the human cells, they began looking at what lives alongside them. Inside every person is an entire ecosystem, trillions of microorganisms, quietly interacting with the body every second. This hidden world, known as the gut microbiome, had long been underestimated. But now, it was impossible to ignore. Because when they compared this internal ecosystem between patients, something finally stood out. Not dozens of differences, not hundreds, just one. A single microscopic factor that seemed to separate responders from non-responders. It wasn't visible on scans. It didn't show up in blood tests. But it was there deep in the gut. And once they saw it, everything started to make sense. And then came the discovery that stunned everyone in the room. After analyzing every possible variable, the researchers found that only one thing consistently separated those who responded to treatment from those who didn't. Not age, not genetics, not medication, just one microscopic difference. A specific gut bacterium called Akkermansia muciniphila. Patients who had this bacterium in their gut showed a completely different response. Their immune systems didn't stay passive. They activated, they recognized cancer cells, they attacked. In some cases, tumors began to shrink dramatically. There were even reports where advanced stage cancer appeared to regress to nearly undetectable levels. But in patients who lacked this bacterium, the immune system remained silent. The treatment was administered. The same drugs entered the body, but nothing happened. No activation, no response, no defense. It was as if the body simply refused to fight. And that's what made this discovery so powerful and so unsettling. Because the difference between these two outcomes wasn't a complex genetic mutation or an expensive medical breakthrough. It was something far smaller, something invisible, something most people never even consider. A single type of bacteria living in the gut. This wasn't just another scientific detail. It was a shift in perspective because it suggested that the body's ability to fight one of the deadliest diseases on Earth might depend on the health of an internal ecosystem we rarely think about. And if that were true, then the question was no longer just about treatment, it was about what we are feeding every single day inside our own bodies. But here's where the story becomes even more surprising. This discovery wasn't just about cancer, it pointed to something much bigger, something that affects every part of your body every single day. Inside you right now lives a vast, complex ecosystem made up of trillions of microorganisms. This system is known as the gut microbiome, and it doesn't just sit there quietly. It is constantly working, constantly communicating, constantly influencing how your body functions. Think of it like a living network, almost like a rainforest or a coral reef inside your body. When it's balanced and healthy, everything thrives. Inflammation stays low. Your immune system responds quickly and effectively. Your metabolism runs smoothly. But when that ecosystem is damaged, the consequences begin to spread. Chronic inflammation increases. Your body struggles to regulate blood sugar. Cholesterol levels shift in the wrong direction. Even your ability to fight infections becomes weaker. What scientists are now realizing is this: the gut is not just a digestive organ, it is a control center. The bacteria living there interact with your immune system, your hormones, even your metabolism. They send signals, trigger responses, and shape how your body reacts to threats. And suddenly, that earlier discovery starts to make sense. If one specific bacterium can influence whether the immune system fights cancer, then what about all the others? What else are they controlling? The answer is far more than we ever imagined. Because this hidden ecosystem doesn't just influence disease, it helps determine how your entire body functions, and whether it moves toward health or slowly toward breakdown. So, what makes this tiny bacterium so powerful? Why would something invisible, something most people have never even heard of, have such a dramatic effect on the body? The answer lies in how it interacts with its environment. Inside your gut, there is a protective layer called mucus. This layer isn't just a barrier, it's a living interface between your body and your microbiome. And this is where Akkermansia mucinifila thrives. It feeds on that mucus layer, helping to maintain its thickness and integrity. In doing so, it strengthens the gut barrier, preventing harmful substances from leaking into the bloodstream. But that's only part of the story. Certain compounds in food, especially polyphenols, can stimulate your gut to produce more mucus, which means more fuel for this bacterium. And when Akkermansia is well fed, something remarkable begins to happen. It doesn't just survive, it starts to influence your entire metabolic system. Researchers have identified a specific particle found on its outer membrane known as P9. Even when the bacterium is broken apart, this tiny fragment remains biologically active, and its effect is powerful. It stimulates the release of GLP-1, a key hormone involved in regulating blood sugar, appetite, and energy balance. This means a single bacterium can impact how your body processes food, controls insulin, and manages weight. Even more fascinating, it continues to work even after the bacterium itself is no longer intact. What we're looking at here isn't just digestion, it's communication, a microscopic signal system quietly shaping your biology from the inside out. So, if this bacterium is so important, can you simply take it as a supplement? Surprisingly, no. You can't just eat Akkermansia mucinifila and expect it to survive. It's extremely sensitive, and delivering it directly into the gut is far more complex than it sounds. But here's the good news: you don't need to. Because instead of trying to introduce it from the outside, you can grow it from within. Think of it like a garden. You don't force plants to grow, you create the right conditions, and they flourish naturally. In this case, the key is feeding your gut the right compounds, especially polyphenols. These compounds signal your gut to produce more mucus, which becomes the primary food source for Akkermansia. And when that food supply increases, so does the bacterium. Certain foods are especially powerful at triggering this process. Pomegranate, rich in polyphenols, is one of the most effective. Dried cranberries provide a concentrated source without the added sugar found in juice. Concord grapes contain unique compounds that strongly support this pathway. Even traditional ingredients like black vinegar, often used in Asian cuisine, have been shown to encourage its growth. And then there are hot chili peppers, which, beyond their heat, stimulate beneficial changes in the gut environment. Peaches, too, have been linked to increased levels of this bacterium. What's important to understand is this: you're not feeding yourself, you're feeding an ecosystem. Every bite you take is either supporting that system or weakening it. And over time, those small daily choices begin to shape something much bigger: your body's ability to defend, repair, and survive. Now, step back for a moment and look at the bigger picture. Inside your body lives an entire world, an ecosystem so vast, it rivals the complexity of any natural environment on Earth. Roughly 39 trillion microorganisms inhabit your gut. That's more than the number of human cells in your body. Together, they form what scientists call the gut microbiome. But this isn't just a collection of passive organisms. It functions more like an operating system constantly running in the background, regulating critical processes you don't even notice. When this system is balanced, everything works more efficiently. Inflammation is kept under control. Your immune system responds quickly but not excessively. Metabolism stays stable, helping regulate blood sugar and energy use. Even your cholesterol profile is influenced, lowering harmful LDL while supporting beneficial HDL. But when this system becomes disrupted, the effects are subtle at first, and then they begin to compound. Inflammation rises quietly. Metabolic signals become unstable. The body starts storing more fat, responding less effectively to insulin, and struggling to maintain balance. And here's the part most people never realize. These bacteria don't just react to your body, they actively shape it. They influence how your immune system behaves, how your metabolism adjusts, and how your body responds to stress and disease. It's a two-way relationship, but not an equal one. Because when the microbiome is damaged, your body doesn't just lose support, it loses guidance. And suddenly, health is no longer something your body naturally maintains. It becomes something it struggles to hold on to. Now, here's something even more unexpected. What if a single, simple change in your diet could extend your life by years? Not months, not weeks, years. Recent research has shown that increasing your intake of omega-3 fatty acids even slightly can have a profound impact on longevity. In fact, just adding one extra serving of omega-3 rich food per week has been associated with an increase in survival of up to 4.7 years. Let that sink in. One additional serving, one small adjustment, and yet the long-term effect is massive. So where do these omega-3s come from? The most direct sources are seafood, fatty fish like salmon, sardines, and mackerel. Even shellfish can contribute meaningful amounts. The portion size is smaller than most people expect. About 3 ounces, roughly the size of a deck of cards. Not a large meal. Not a complicated routine, just a consistent habit. For those who follow a plant-based diet, omega-3s are still accessible. Foods like chia seeds, flax seeds, and certain nuts provide the building blocks your body can convert. But here's the key difference. Plant-based sources require your body to do extra work, converting these compounds into the active forms it actually needs, which means you need more of them to achieve the same effect. Still, the principle remains the same. Small inputs, long-term outcomes. And when you connect this back to everything we've discussed, the microbiome, inflammation, metabolism, it becomes clear that these aren't isolated factors. They are part of the same system, a system where even the smallest change can shift the trajectory of your entire life. Most people believe the brain is in control of everything, every thought, every decision, every function in the body. But what if that assumption isn't entirely true? Because there is a direct communication pathway between your brain and your gut, a powerful connection known as the vagus nerve. And here's the surprising part. The majority of signals don't travel from the brain downward. They travel upward. In fact, around 80 to 90% of the communication flows from the gut to the brain. That means your brain is constantly receiving updates from your microbiome, interpreting signals, adjusting responses, and shaping how you feel and think. This changes everything, because it suggests that your mental state isn't just created in your head. It's influenced continuously by what's happening in your gut. When the microbiome is balanced, those signals support clarity, stability, and focus. Your brain receives consistent, healthy input, but when the gut environment is disrupted, the signals change. Inflammatory messages increase. Stress responses become amplified. Cognitive function can begin to decline over time. And this isn't just theory. Researchers are now exploring how gut health is linked to memory, mood disorders, and even long-term brain health. So when we talk about improving the body, we're not just talking about physical strength or disease prevention. We're talking about the quality of your thoughts, your emotional stability, your ability to think clearly and respond to the world around you. Because in many ways, your brain is listening to your gut far more than you ever realized. If the gut can influence the brain, then the next question becomes even more intriguing. Can bacteria actually affect how you feel? The answer is yes. And one of the most fascinating examples is a bacterium called Lactobacillus reuteri. This microorganism does something remarkable. It stimulates the release of a hormone known as oxytocin. Often called the love hormone, oxytocin is responsible for feelings of trust, bonding, and emotional connection. It's what you feel when you hug someone you care about, when you reconnect with a loved one after a long time, even during moments of deep emotional intimacy. But here's what makes this so powerful. That emotional response, the warmth, the connection, the sense of well being, can be influenced by bacteria living in your gut. In other words, your emotional state is not entirely under conscious control. It is shaped, in part, by your internal biology. Researchers have even observed that this bacterium can influence social behavior, enhance emotional resilience, and support overall mental well being. And there's another layer to this story. In early life, this bacterium is naturally transferred from mother to child, helping establish a healthy microbiome from the very beginning. But over time, due to modern lifestyles, antibiotics, and diet, its presence can decline, which raises an important question. If something so small can influence something as complex as human emotion, what else is being affected without us realizing it? Because this isn't just about digestion anymore. It's about how you feel, how you connect, and how your brain responds to the world around you, all shaped quietly from within. Up to this point, everything we've explored may sound almost unbelievable. Tiny organisms influencing cancer outcomes, metabolism, even emotions. But then come the real stories, cases that force you to pause and reconsider what's possible. There are individuals diagnosed with some of the most aggressive forms of cancer conditions where the expected survival time is measured in months, not years. In one such case, a patient with advanced brain cancer was given a prognosis of just 1 to 2 years. The odds were clear. The progression was considered inevitable. But something unexpected happened. Instead of relying solely on conventional treatment, the approach shifted toward activating the body's own immune system. A specialized therapeutic strategy designed to train the immune system to recognize and target cancer cells was introduced. And gradually, the trajectory began to change. Time passed. The disease did not progress as expected. Years went by. Not one, not two, but nearly 7 years later, the patient remained cancer-free. Now, this is not a miracle in the traditional sense. It is a reflection of something deeper. The human body, when properly supported, has the capacity to defend itself in ways we are only beginning to understand. And this brings us back to everything we've discussed. The microbiome, the immune system, the signals that determine whether the body fights or stays silent. Because therapies that activate immunity don't work in isolation. They depend on the internal environment of the body. They depend on whether the system is ready to respond. Stories like this don't guarantee outcomes, but they reveal potential. They show us that the line between decline and recovery may not be as fixed as we once believed. And that, perhaps, the future of medicine is not just about treating disease, but about preparing the body to fight it. But there's a problem most people never see coming. If your internal ecosystem is this powerful, it is also incredibly fragile. The same system that can support your immune defense, regulate your metabolism, and even influence your brain, can be disrupted far more easily than you think. Not by a single event, but by small, repeated choices. Ultra-processed foods, excess sugar, artificial additives, chronic stress. Each one may seem harmless on its own, but over time, they begin to reshape the environment inside your gut. And not in your favor. Beneficial bacteria start to decline. Harmful strains begin to take over. Inflammation quietly rises. You don't feel it immediately. There's no sudden warning. But beneath the surface, the balance is shifting. Think of it like a coral reef. When it's healthy, it's vibrant, full of life, color, and activity. But introduce pollutants, and slowly, the system begins to collapse. The same thing can happen inside your body. And once that balance is lost, everything becomes harder. Your immune system struggles to respond. Your metabolism becomes less efficient. Your body enters a state of constant, low-level stress. This is why prevention matters. Not as a vague concept, but as a daily practice. Because every meal, every habit, every choice either supports that internal ecosystem or works against it. So in the end, the question is no longer just about what you eat. It's about what you are building inside your body. Are you creating an environment that supports strength, resilience, and repair? Or one that slowly moves toward imbalance? Because the answer to that question is shaping your future, one decision at a time.